give me a sense from your perspective. I'm a nonprofit. I'm interested in engaging the next generation. How do I go? How do I navigate? Give me a direction. Give me a map. Katya, help us out.
All right. When you want to have a map, the way you start drawing your map is you say, who's my audience and what do I want them to do? Why am I engaging with them? And marketing often, marketers skip that step, and fundraisers skip that step, and they say, okay, should we be on Facebook? Should we have a press release or do a PSA? Not skipping that step. So
the typical PR, right? The typical
right,
PR.
Exactly. Right, and that's very knee-jerk, non-strategic, and then ultimately ineffective because you're not rooted in a clear audience-based strategy. You don't understand your audience, you don't even know what you're trying to do, and not surprisingly, you have trouble measuring success or even telling if you had an impact. So with millennials, what you want to think about is, well, who are they? And what can we reasonably expect? They're young, right? They're not necessarily donating a lot of money. None of us were in our teens, 20s, at least I wasn't. I certainly would have liked to have had the money at my disposal, but I needed to do my laundry and eat and sort of get by with my cost of education, et cetera. So what we want to do is understand who they are. And I was on a great panel some months ago at the Legacy Foundation, which did the groundbreaking Truth Anti-Smoking campaign, and are really experts in marketing to millennials. And I was on a panel with Nick Shore from MTV, who was sharing a lot of the research and MTV does with millennials, which is pretty mind-boggling. I think he has like a 45% research team. And what he was saying about millennials is, they're not your typical rebellious teenager. A lot of the millennials have sort of grown up in these very nurturing, with very nurturing parenting. So I can tell you, as when I grew up, not everyone got a gold medal and a trophy at the soccer game, but a lot of times they do now. And our coddled generation also has grown up in a very troubled time with 9/11 and terrorism and kind of scary things going on outside the home that are very real. And I think that it was either he or Nick Shore or Peter Zolo, who also studies millennials, that calls it culture shelter, is the sort of term for millennials, because actually, given those circumstances, the home feels pretty good. It's not something you want to flee from. And the relationship with their parents, which is very nurturing, is something they don't necessarily reject. So they tend to be a little less rebellious, a lot more socially aware, much more receptive to messages from sort of traditional authority figures, and very interested in their own hopes and dreams, and sort of generally optimistic and sort of focused on society around them. So it's sort of an interesting picture, isn't it? And it makes you get very interested in thinking about, well, these may not be donors today, but they will be someday. And now is the time when they're starting to look around the world with them and wonder how to engage with it in a constructive way, because there's every indication that's what they want to do, that we open the door to that, because that's what they want to do. And how do you open the door to that? Well, you've got to go where people are. And you don't sit back and hope millennials are going to visit your website or send out an email campaign tool and think they're going to come respond in droves. That's not how it works. You've got to go figure out where are they clustering, and online's a great place to look because they're living their lives in front of screens, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not their texting, their computer. They are constantly online. So where are they hanging out online? And where are they talking about issues they care about that we can tap into and start a conversation, where we can start making them aware of what we're doing and how we might have ways to engage with the issue. And then you want to think about, well, once you start listening to them and watching them and understanding where they are and what they're thinking about doing, what are some basic levels of engagement that we can start? And when you think about engagement with millennials, I'm really sick of the term, sort of slacker, do-gooders, slacktivists. It's so derogatory and pejorative. This is a generation that it's starting to dabble, and so some folks in our sector are saying, oh, it's slacktivism, they're lazy, it's only an initial level of engagement, what do you do with those people? And I think that's ridiculous, right? If people are starting to get involved and they're taking baby steps, your job is to help them make a baby step toward your cause and then build upon that. In sales and marketing, there's this, and psychology, there's the term momentum of compliance or foot-in-the-door technique. If you get someone to take a small act, and then you do a great job applauding them for it and showing the difference it made, they are more likely to take bigger steps later. And so rather than sitting back and saying, oh, they're a bunch of slacktivists, they're not going to give money. What I'm saying is you need to be thinking about these are tomorrow's donors. They're choosing to engage a lot through technology. They like to do things that are fast and easy. They're starting to take baby steps. What small levels of engagement can we make really available to them where they are online that start building that momentum of compliance, that start building that relationship, that start increasing that interest level? And then how can we keep reporting back to them about the impact they're having? Because there's nothing like positive reinforcement in the sense that we're making a difference to inspire us to greater acts. And the last thing I'll say on this is I blame the nonprofits. If you're trying to engage millennials and they're not doing anything, or they signed a petition, or they engaged and didn't do anything later, is it because they're lazy and disengaged, or is it because you haven't done a fabulous job at cultivating? I think we all have to look at ourselves and say, have we done the job we could? So often in the nonprofit sector, we focus on the people who aren't giving or who needs to give more, and we don't put enough energy into thanking the people who have done something on our behalf and cultivating the people who have taken initial steps towards support, however small. And you need to put just as much energy into that as you do out looking for new donors, because that's how you take initial engagement and turn it into a longer-term relationship.
Absolutely. Amen. I completely agree. You know, when you think about organizations, even when they're doing special events, and, you know, it's always easy for us to make excuses to say, well, this is why it didn't occur. It's usually on the donor side. But looking internally is sometimes one of the hardest, and is the hardest thing to do for most organizations. So I completely agree.
And we hear a lot about this online. So we hear a lot of people saying online donors are fickle, or they don't come back and give online.
Right, right.
While I agree that online donors may not come back as regularly, and I do agree that multi-channel marketing works best, where you put an online donor on your direct mail list, you solicit email address from your direct mail list, they should all reinforce each other. But we shouldn't be too quick to throw the label on online donors as fickle, because part of it may be that we did a lousy job thanking them.
Yeah,
part of it may be we did a lousy job cultivating them. I do all my giving online, and I often don't even get thanked. I just get a receipt. And so how it's not surprising that people may not go back and want to have that experience again if it didn't work out so well the first time. And millennials are no different in that way.